here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Pierre Noujaim, the songbird of a generation.
That's a first.
No one's ever called you that before?
No, that's definitely a first. And
okay.
And I'm happy to see you're not looking like Ray Charles today, like you did last week.
Oh no, that's great. Yeah, you know what? Ray Charles would have been better than anything else. He. I've watched. You've now sent me off on a thing. So I watched Ray. I was always a huge Ray Charles fan.
Okay. I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah, my dad was a big Ray Charles fan. Okay. So like I believe that he's like a top like 3 musician in the history of music. Like Beethoven can screw off.
Yeah.
Like Rachel, well, maybe not Beethoven. Beethoven was deaf and Ray Charles was blind. So they're like on the same level of creativity of what they were doing. So anyway, but like that kind of like good. And I watched the movie about him with Jamie Foxx, which is excellent. And, he had all these things like, how he learned how to be blind and functional. Like he wore heavy-soled shoes so he could hear when he walked past the door. And he was like real life Daredevil. Like he could hear things and all that, heightened things. He could mimic people's voices. Like he would, if he was alive today, he'd be on SNL, like doing, like he'd be like Jay Farrow or somebody like that, where he can just do tons of voices. And, he would, he would sometimes, if somebody wasn't performing well, he would just sing their part, like a backup singer. He would just sing their part in their voice. And so like sometimes you're listening to Ray Charles, and he's like, I'll sing it and lay it down later. And so he kind of came up with all these things. And so I read probably 4 different books about Ray Charles. And I always regretted, he came to Tallahassee when I was like a sophomore, and he was playing, they were selling tickets on campus, and I wanted to go, and like none of my friends would go with me. They're like, no, I don't. I was like, do you understand? Like, he's amazing. And they're like, yeah, and then of course, like at that time in 2000, like, you mean the guy that does the Diet Coke commercials? I'm like, yes, that guy. He probably won't do that song, but, let's go see Ray Charles. And I called my dad. I'm like, hey, can you come to Tallahassee and go see Ray Charles? And he was like, no, I'm going to be gone. He would have done it too. He'd have been like, all right, you get the tickets. Yeah. I was like, nobody's going to go. Then I find out later on, because there was a guy in my dorm named Jeff. And then there was another guy in the dorm, and his name was Governor, and Governor was blind. Jeff took Governor to see him, and then because Governor was blind, got to meet him. And I was like, Jeff, I wish I'd have known this, because I feel like we apparently just didn't cross paths, for 2 weeks during this time. And he was like, oh my God, I totally would have gone. He goes, the show is unbelievable. The show is unbelievable. Not only that, so I call back and tell my dad that story. And I left this part out. My dad was a huge Ray Charles fan, because when he was 16 years old, he was hanging out at a place, like they used to have places for like young 16-year-old to hang out. He's in Bryan, Texas, where he grew up. He's hanging out, and they're like, having soda pops and playing pinball and stuff like that. The kids used to do. And the reason that they were there longer than normal, the place was normally about to close, but because the weather was so bad, Bryan is a small place. It's not that small anymore, but it was really small, in 1959 or whenever this was, and so it's just pouring down rain, and this guy comes in and knocks in the door, and then opens the door, and it was Ray Charles and his driver. They were driving from Austin to Houston for shows, and the weather was so bad. Like, hey, we saw the lights are on. Can we come in here and hang out? And my dad sat there and talked to Ray Charles for 2 hours. And so all this stuff, I never got to see him. And he was like, yeah, that's why I want to go. And I was like, oh my God. So yes.
That
so
is
if we would have said Ray
unbelievable.
Charles, I would have been like, yes, I would have been. I can sing you like 40 different Ray Charles songs. Probably not nearly as good, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about songbirds of a generation. But that's an unbelievable story with your dad. Holy story. Just sat and talked to Ray Charles for 2 hours.
Their friends just sat for and mind you, this is 1959 in Bryan, Texas. Ray Charles had to definitely ask, can a black guy walk in this room? And they're like, yes, Ray Charles can,
Yeah.
And
sure.
it was so it was,
right.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So it was it was
and
a really cool
happenstance too. Just by happenstance.
I mean, just sitting there, this is Ray Charles, and back then, I came to find out that that area, where you'd go between Austin, Bryan, that little run was a lot of musicians would stop and stay on the road because you'd get done playing a show, somewhere, and you'd stop there because it was the only place that had a motel. This is in the days before every stop on a tour is glamorous. Elvis went through, and Elvis came through here quite a bit in Waco. But yeah, so all that. So it's kind of weird. I started finding out, and then I asked people older than my dad, hey, did you guys often get mega stars? They're yeah, well, Johnny Cash played the State Fair here 3 times. And I'm like, what? Yeah. So then I you started we couldn't, because it was such a different world back then. Right now, the cool stories that we would have is in our youth, oh yeah, this band was in the town I was living in and I saw them play in a bar once, but now their tickets cost $700 a piece. So
exactly.
But yeah, no one will ever get that again. We're never going back to that. Never going back to that. I mean, never, ever going back to that.
No, those days are long gone. The money is too good. The travel is too good for them. No, they are. I'm not going to put words in their mouth and say that they're above these things, but I mean, they built a life to where they're probably above these things now at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the other thing. Until Ticketmaster gets taken down.
Oh God.
It's just the biggest scam in the world, which, by the way, we're going to talk about the Masters first today because what Rory did yesterday was unbelievable. Also, by the way, shout out to sponsor Flag and Anthem right here. Keegan Bradley's their guy, but they sent me this shirt. It's very cool, very comfortable. So they're a big golf apparel company. So go to Flag and Anthem. Use our promo code 365sports, 10% off. Anyway, that's just a quick plug there. But the Masters and sometimes big billionaire, rich entities have to fight against each other and you have to pick a side. I'm all about the Masters and taking their side on Augusta National. The secondary ticket market has gotten out of control in this country. It is out of control. And look, we have sponsors that are secondary ticket sponsors. And look, that's how you get your tickets. You got to promote it. I'm fine, but it's still out of control. It's out of control to where, a ticket that should cost me $100 is costing me $600 because what we did was we made scalping completely illegal, except we just we did with the lottery. The lottery used to be running numbers. It was very illegal. And then the government was like, well, what if we just did it ourselves and gave away way more money? Okay. And it's a tax on poor people mostly because what's the best shot you've got to win $60 million? Well, here's $1, here's $1, here's $1, here's $5, here's $10, here's $20 every week, because that's the only way you can maybe break into that tax bracket.
Right.
Well, they did the same thing with tickets and they made everything secondary ticket market is now all, it's scalping. It's legalized scalping is what it is. And so, it sucks, but Augusta National apparently, I saw Darren Rovell tweet this weekend, is going to take back the control of their tickets and cut the secondary markets out of it. Which, look, the tickets are still not going to be cheap, but the Masters they don't make money on people attending the tournament.
Right.
They make money on television rights and the fact that the only people who are members are the richest people in the world. That's where they make their money.
There's only so many pimento and cheese sandwiches that you could sell at the stand, that'll keep the cost down of maintaining Augusta National.
Again, that is their showcase event. The Masters is their showcase event, and it makes them money, sure. And the merchandise makes them lots of money. All those things make them money. But if they were just having, because it is the most exclusive golf club on planet Earth, if they were just having one event there and no one else could really play there, they would make no money. Right. Where they make their money is the fact that guys like Bill Gates and people like are members. Like, and you're not like, there's just, it's not something like you and I, like, even if we like tomorrow morning struck podcast gold and, 3 years from now, we are rich beyond our wildest dreams. Very popular. People want to see us. We're still only going to get invited to play around there if they like us enough. Right. If they, if a member, said, hey, these are my friends, let's have them up here to play. We couldn't be like, hey, listen, Pierre and I are rolling in it now. You guys, we would like to join. They'd be like, yeah. You know who else would like to join? Several Saudi sheiks. We don't let them in.
Yeah.
They could buy
Don't have that kind of liquid gold. There's no liquid gold coming out of our at this point.
No. So guess who else wants to join? Steven Tyler. We don't let him. No, Yeah. Did you guys do Janie's Got a Gun? No, you didn't. I can't believe that's the one I picked.
I could give it. We'd be like, we can give it the old college try if you'd like. I'm not above. See, we're talking about musicians being above staying in these places. I'm not above making a fool out of myself, singing and dancing to get myself into the Masters. Why on earth would I not?
Yeah, I would be too nervous to be a member at Augusta National.
Oh, I would get kicked out in 5 minutes.
It would just there's so many rules and there's so many there's things I would do that I didn't know, and I'd be like, oh, listen, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to I did not know that there was some sort of mustard quotient that I had to, stay below. I'm sorry. I don't know. I wandered into the champions locker room by mistake. I really had to pee, and it was the first one,
Yeah.
Did I stay in and try on jackets until one fit? Yes. But who hasn't done that in the same situation? I peed first and washed my hands. So we're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let he who has not tried on a Masters coat throw the first coat hanger. Come on. Let's be real.
Yeah. Did I find the key to Gene Sarandon's locker and and put it on? Is it a little bit ripped in the back now? Remains to be seen. Eye of the beholder. You
probably know this about me, but that I honestly, and I'll be honest with you, I know we're going to talk about the Masters here in a minute, but I didn't get a chance to watch pretty much any of, not just yesterday's round, but the tournament in general, because yesterday I was covering the Timberwolves game, which was at 2:30 in the afternoon. So it was right smack dab in the middle of the final round of the Masters. But for me, I've never been a golf fan. I've never been a golf aficionado. I've never enjoyed being around the community of golf. It's just something about the elitism and the haughtiness that just always rubbed me the wrong way. I was never a huge fan. So part of me would love to get into the Masters to genuinely act aloof and unimpressed by everything I see and not really caring about any of the rules, because you would probably have a freaking nervous breakdown watching me just be a bull in a china shop in that place, because I couldn't care less. All of the history and tradition means absolutely nothing to me at Augusta National. Nothing.
I love it. I'm a huge fan of the Masters. I'm a huge fan of I'm a terrible golfer. I haven't golfed in years. But I love the sport. I appreciate the once a year pageantry of the Masters.
Sure.
If it was all and I like every major is different. The US Open is kind of like the people's tournament, and the PGA is just to me, it's just kind of a regular tournament. It's cool, but it's difficult. And then the British Open is always cool because that's where golf began, right, in the British Isles. So I appreciate the history of that. And the thing is, Augusta is just so beautiful. Watching sports on television when they gave us HD and then eventually 4K, it was for the Masters. It's amazing. And what happened yesterday in the annals of not just golf history, but sports history was a really cool thing, because that's the reason I think you and I love sports, and to get a little poetic here, Pierre, is that every day something happens that doesn't happen that often or that's never happened before, and Rory McIlroy, it took him 11 Masters to get the career Grand Slam and 17 overall to win it. And it was weighing on him personally. The fact that he was chasing it was absolutely crushing him. Here's the guy who is unquestionably one of the top golfers in the world, like 1-2 every year, except for when he goes to Augusta, Georgia, and then things just don't work out for him. He's had many opportunities to win, and then, just flubbed them, hit the wall. Things that athletes of his caliber don't normally do, but golf is that kind of a game where there's no one to pick you up but you. Like, that's it. Like, Michael Jordan can have a bad game. He can shoot 9 for 30 from the floor and only have 21 points in a game they needed him to score 30. But guess what? Tony Kukoc hit 12 threes tonight and set an NBA record, and you're okay.
Yeah.
Tom Brady can have a rough day passing, but in the Deflategate game, which I think is really funny, in the Deflategate game, Tom Brady didn't really have that great of a day throwing the ball. LeGarrette Blount ran for 180 yards. Didn't matter that there was no air in the ball. That Colts couldn't tackle LeGarrette Blount, which I was reminded of when we interviewed LeGarrette Blount at a Super Bowl one time. I said, tell me about Deflategate. He's like, man, that was bullshit. He's like, I had 180 yards. I didn't throw the ball one time. Brady didn't do nothing that day. He said it playfully, but he was like, hey, everybody, it genuinely hurt his feelings that everybody's making this big deal about Brady. And it's like, hey, I just personally ran through the Colts. Can we not talk about that?
Who's the linebacker on the Colts that went to UMHB that play? He played in that game. I keep forgetting. What was his name?
Garrett, what was his name?
I
have no idea.
There was a linebacker who played at UMHB who was playing on the Colts at that time in that AFC Championship game. We had a chance to interview him shortly after
Jarrell Freeman. He went to university. I should know that. I know Jarrell a little bit. I just blanked. Yeah, Jarrell Freeman was in that.
We had a chance to interview him not too long after that game, and somebody asked him about the ball, and he was like, oh, man, here we go. And they're like, well, we just, you're playing the game. It's a big story. We kind of have to ask it. So,
yeah. So anyway, but what Rory did yesterday was absolutely unbelievable. And watching it, it was a roller coaster of emotion for golf. Sometimes these things you're just watching, you watch 18 holes of a coronation because the guy's done so well. And that's kind of a different thing. It's fine to watch, but he starts out with a double bogey. DeChambeau's tied with him. Then before you know it, he's up by 5 strokes. Then out of nowhere, here comes Justin Rose. Rory falls out of the lead, then back into the lead, and then misses a putt that's this long to force a playoff, then is lucky enough to be able to hit his second shot after Justin Rose and puts his ball inside of Justin's and then wins the tournament. And all these things, it was just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Just crazy, just absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah. And it was amazing. The emotion that went over him, was awesome. And he went through it personally. He almost got divorced and all these things. His wife and his daughter were there, and the daughter didn't really know what was going on all that much, I don't think. But Shane Lowry, just grabbing him and hugging him. They're very close friends. They're both Irishman and Northern Irishman, but Irish nonetheless. Sure. So it was just, I think, is a sports moment, especially given what we're going to talk about in the next segment about Nico Iamaleava. It was so heartwarming and great to see for a guy like Rory to be just so happy and relieved. And now, look, I'm going to tell you, he's probably going to rattle off 4 or 5 more majors before he's done in his career, because now the burden of I've won all of them, and it's not just this one that's getting me, is off his shoulders.
Well, yeah, I'll admit yesterday, even when I was covering the Timberwolves game, I had a what is it? Colleague. That's the word I'm looking for. A colleague sitting next to me. He had his laptop up and he had the Masters going. Now, I also had my laptop up, but I was also having one eye on the DC Defenders St. Louis Battlehawks game that was going on in the UFL. And that's really what I would have been watching if I wasn't covering the Timberwolves.
So are you a big UFL guy?
I watch every single game. I watch as many as I can, that's for sure. I like to keep up with who's who and who's doing what and how quality the football is. And the quality of the football this year through 3 weeks has not been good. It has not been good. And I like to try to give that league as much love as it can. But the football, there's only been 2 games that have been worth watching. But I did find myself kind of leaning to my left over at, my colleague, Jim Suhan, who writes for one of the papers here in town. He had his computer up. I said, who's up? Because I heard before the game started, I heard Rory had fallen out of the lead. I heard DeChambeau was up. And then
they were tied. They were tied.
Oh, they were tied.
They were
like,
tied, yeah.
I heard he fell out, and then and then even I know the history of Rory McIlroy at Augusta National and like the impending doom that felt that probably was wafting in the air down there at Augusta National. But in a sense, I absolutely appreciate the fact of what he was able to do, and to miss that putt, to then get forced into a playoff, you could easily crumble. Everybody is waiting for another Jean Van de Velde moment at these tournaments. And that absolutely could have been it for him. For him to kind of compose himself, rally himself, and win that playoff against Justin Rose. Rose was in the lead after 1. I know that. Was he in the lead after 2? Was he still?
No, they only played the 1 hole. They only played the 1 hole.
But I mean in the tournament when the tournament.
No, he was tied. Like he kept tying him. Like he just like Rory never fell completely out of the lead. He was always just tied for it.
No, but I mean at the beginning of the tournament. Justin.
He was in the lead
after 1
after the first round, and then not after the second round. He was up there. He was up there close to the second. He was first or second. So yeah,
I don't remember second. I know he was leading after the first round.
But on Saturday he didn't have a very good day. On Saturday, I mean, he just had an okay day. I mean, he didn't have a bad day. He just had an okay day. But his round, his back 9 was ridiculous. It was ridiculous yesterday. So. Yeah, no. So it's and then you feel bad. Here's the thing. I'm so thrilled for Rory. Justin Rose has never won the thing either. This is his second place finish.
Yeah.
And, he's 44, 45 years old, Father Time waits for no one. And he had this moment and then he didn't get to finish it. Like, it's just like Rory has his, but, that's the fickle finger of fate, I guess, like sometimes it's your day. Sometimes it's just this much somebody else's. So
that's the storyline that's definitely going to get lost in the shuffle, which, and if I may, I'm actually okay with that because I think we have far too often that we overlook the winner in not just golf, but in a lot of sports. We overlook the winner. We overlook the story of actually the individual or the team winning. And we focus a lot on perhaps the big star or the team that was supposed to win that didn't win. So I'm perfectly okay with how, this storyline is playing out for Rory. Sounds like he deserves it. And I know that is a very popular guy on the tour. I know that. So
ask Y.E. Yang that question, who beat Tiger that time. So, all right. When we come back, I want to talk about Nico Iamaleava, who is now officially, I guess he won't be officially in the transfer portal till Wednesday when it opens, but he's filed his paperwork. He's leaving Tennessee. That decision was made this weekend, which I always thought that's where it was going to go. I didn't think they could go.
He wasn't coming back. That was going to end up like Lane Kiffin.
He was coming back. But I've posed a couple of questions to both you, Pierre and Garrett, to think about in that. And so for the audience watching, here are the questions about Nico. If you have the money to get Nico, what system do you put in place to guard the locker room against the super diva with a helicopter dad? Like, how do you do that? And here's the other thing. And if you're Nico, you've made it clear it's all about money. It's all about money because of he can't transfer in the SEC. He's likely not going to any of these, he's not going to Michigan or Ohio State or somewhere like this. He's not going to, he's not going to other places you would say would be definite contenders. He's definitely not going to Oregon.
Yeah.
So that's not happening. So the schools that have been mentioned right now, UCLA, Tulane, UNC, Texas Tech, the ones most prevalent, and maybe a little bit of USC, which again, that one wouldn't surprise me, but his brother's going to UCLA. So that's kind of a factor. They need to swing big, but None of those schools are championship pedigree schools, and especially like Tech would have a shot with him with the roster that they've built, I think.
Sure.
North Carolina has no shot at winning. They don't even have a shot at winning the ACC this year. I'm going to tell you that right now. Unequivocally, they don't have the roster to win the ACC. They don't. Like Belichick notwithstanding, whatever that is, year one, they don't have the roster. They do not. Even with a guy like Nico who's good, but I mean, still not great. Tulane is Tulane, and UCLA is not ever, never. They have no football history. It is not a basketball school. It's the basketball school.
Sure.
Like of all, like Kentucky has better football history. Kansas lately does, but like they're the most mediocre nothing football program. They are. So like, it's not about winning. So, and maybe it is at Tech a little bit, but like, this is just about money. So how are you helping your draft stock by going to some of these schools?
I think,
and we'll talk about it now. Let's talk about it next.
Like, are we going
we'll
to
talk
break
about it next. No. We're going to go to break. Think about it. But like all those things, that is the topic. I will revisit it here in a second. This is the Triple Option.